The impossible visitor, War Admiral Zex Thorne stared at the security feed with all 6 of his eyes, mandibles clicking in agitation as he watched the impossible unfold. The massive display showed a single human walking calmly through the central corridor of Fortress Dominion, the most secure military installation in the entire Vraxian Empire. "Replay that," he ordered, his voice a low rumble that sent his subordinates scurrying to comply. The footage rewound and played again. There it was, a lone human in what appeared to be standard Earth Concordat attire, striding through their security checkpoint as if out for a pleasant stroll. The guards, elite Vraxian warriors with chitinous armor and neural-linked weapons, simply stood aside. "How is this possible?" Zex Thorne demanded, smashing one of his 4 arms against the command console. "We are 50 light-years from human space. This facility is protected by 3 planetary defense grids, quantum detection arrays, and a chronoshift barrier." Sub-Commander Kylevex, her carapace still gleaming from her recent molting, checked the system readouts. "Sir, according to these logs, no alarms were triggered. The perimeter sensors registered nothing." The guards, she hesitated, mandibles quivering. The guards report they saw nothing unusual. Nothing unusual. Zex Thorne's voice rose to a screech that made the bridge crew flinch. "A human, our sworn enemy, is walking through the heart of our most secure weapons research facility, and they saw nothing unusual." The Vraxian Empire and the human Earth Concordat had been locked in a brutal war for 15 solar cycles. What had begun as a territorial dispute over the resource-rich Helios cluster had escalated into full-scale war when the Vraxian High Council decided to make an example of the human colony on Helios Prime. They'd expected a quick surrender. They hadn't expected humans to fight back with such terrifying effectiveness. "Alert all security personnel," Zex Thorne ordered. "Lock down every section. I want that human captured immediately." "Yes, War Admiral," Kylevex replied, her claws dancing across the control interface. The massive fortress known as Dominion was carved into the core of a dead moon orbiting a gas giant in the Vraxian home system. Its walls were 50 meters thick, reinforced with phase-shifted alloys, designed to withstand antimatter bombardment. It housed the Empire's most advanced weapons research division and a garrison of 10,000 elite Vraxian warriors. And somehow, one human had just walked right in. "Security feed from Sector 7. Kylevex announced, pulling up another screen. There was the human again, walking down a corridor lined with weapon emplacements. The automated defense turrets tracked the intruder but didn't fire. A patrol of 6 armed guards approached from the opposite direction, noticed the human, and raised their pulse rifles. Then they lowered them again and stepped aside. "What is happening?" Zex Thorne hissed, his dorsal spines flaring in anger and confusion. "Are they malfunctioning? Have they been compromised?" "Biosigns for all guards appear normal," Kylevex reported, sounding equally confused. "No signs of mind control technology or neural tampering." Zex Thorne reached for the communication panel. "This is War Admiral Zex Thorne. Intruder alert, all sectors. We have a human infiltrator in Sector 7, heading toward the central research hub. All personnel are authorized to use lethal force. Repeat, lethal force is authorized." On the screen, another patrol intercepted the human. This time they formed a firing line, blocking the corridor completely. The lead guard shouted something at the human, who stopped walking. For a moment, Zex Thorne thought the situation was under control. Then the human spoke. The security feed had no audio, but Zex Thorne could see the human's mouth moving, forming words. Just a few sentences, spoken calmly. One by one, the guards lowered their weapons. "What is happening?" Zex Thorne demanded, his voice rising to a screech. What did the human say to them? The human walked through the line of guards, who parted like smoke before wind. One of them even saluted as the human passed. "Get me audio," Zex Thorne shouted. "I need to hear what this human is saying to our troops." The security system in that sector doesn't record audio, Kylevex said, her normally steady voice now trembling. It's a secure zone near the quantum research labs. Where is the human heading? Zex Thorn demanded. Kylevex studied the facility schematic. Based on their current trajectory, the Nexus Core, War Admiral. Zex Thorn felt his blood run cold. The Nexus Core contained the Empire's most devastating weapon prototype, the Reality Shear, a device capable of tearing open the fabric of space-time itself. If deployed against Earth, it would erase the entire solar system from existence. Lock down the Nexus Core immediately. Already done, War Admiral, Kylevex confirmed. The Nexus requires Omega-level clearance and synchronized genetic authorization from 3 High Council members. No one can access it without direct approval from the Emperor himself. Zex Thorn nodded, feeling a slight relief. No matter what strange power this human possessed to influence their guards, they couldn't possibly breach the Nexus Core. The security feed switched to show the human approaching the enormous door sealing the Nexus Core. It was 5 meters thick, made of neutronium alloy with a security panel that required retinal scan, voice print, and genetic verification from 3 separate authorized High Council members simultaneously. The human stopped in front of the door, examined it for a moment, then placed a hand on the security panel. The massive door slid open with a hydraulic hiss. That's impossible, Kylevex gasped, her exoskeleton paling to a sickly gray. Zex Thorn stared in disbelief as the human calmly walked into the Empire's most secure weapons facility. How? He managed to croak. The system shows. Kylevex's voice faltered. The system shows that the human provided all 3 required authentications, but that can't be right. The genetic verification alone would require Vraxian DNA. Zex Thorn's mind raced. This wasn't just an infiltration. This was something that defied explanation entirely. Seal off this command center, he ordered, and get me a direct line to the High Council. We need reinforcements. Communications are down, Kylevex reported after attempting to establish contact. All channels are being jammed. Internal communications too. We're isolated, Zex Thorn realized, a cold dread settling into his thorax. He'd fought in 5 major campaigns against the humans, had seen their ingenuity and determination firsthand. But this was beyond anything he'd encountered before. The human is accessing the Reality Shear containment unit, Kylevex reported, her voice barely a whisper. On the screen, they watched as the intruder examined the weapon, a deceptively small device that resembled a crystalline sphere with swirling energy patterns visible beneath its surface. The culmination of a century of Vraxian weapons research, capable of ripping apart the very fabric of reality. We have to stop them, Zex Thorn declared. Activate the neurotoxin in the Nexus Core. Kylevex hesitated. War Admiral, there are 5 of our chief scientists still in there. Do it, Zex Thorn roared. Better to lose 5 than to let that weapon fall into human hands. Reluctantly, Kylevex pressed the emergency containment override. On the screen, vents opened in the ceiling of the Nexus Core, releasing a colorless gas that would paralyze any living creature within seconds, causing neural collapse within minutes. The Vraxian scientists immediately fell to the floor, their bodies convulsing as the neurotoxin took effect. The human didn't even flinch. Instead, they calmly picked up the Reality Shear, examined it briefly, then placed it in what appeared to be an ordinary shoulder bag. Increase the concentration, Zex Thorn ordered, his voice cracking with panic. It's already at maximum, Kylevex replied. The toxin concentration is 10 times the lethal dose for any known species. They should be dead instantly. But the human continued to move through the Nexus Core, examining other projects and occasionally placing something in the bag. Their movements were unhurried, methodical, almost casual. Who are they? Zex Thorn whispered. What are they? War Admiral, Kylevex said, her voice suddenly tight with fresh terror. The human is heading for the antimatter containment section. The antimatter containment area housed enough antimatter to power the entire facility for a century, or to create an explosion that would turn the moon they were on into an expanding cloud of superheated plasma. "We have to evacuate," Zex Thorne decided. "Sound the general alarm. All personnel to escape pods immediately." But War Admiral, the High Council's directive was clear. "We are to protect this facility with our lives." "We can't protect anything if we're all dead," Zex Thorne snapped. "Sound the alarm." As Kylevex complied, Zex Thorne watched the humans' progress on the security feed. They had entered the antimatter containment chamber and were standing in front of the primary containment field generator. "War Admiral," Kylevex said, looking up from her console. "There's something you should know about the human." "What is it?" Zex Thorne asked, not taking his eyes off the screen. "I've been analyzing their biological signatures from the security scans. They're inconsistent." "What does that mean?" "Sometimes the scans show a standard human life sign, but other times, nothing. As if they're not really there." Zex Thorne turned to face his sub-commander. "A hologram? A drone?" "No," Kylevex said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "The readings suggest something else. Something our science doesn't have a classification for." An explosion rocked the command center, sending both Vraxian officers stumbling. Warning lights flashed across every console. "Antimatter containment breached in Sector 12, Kylevex reported. "Cascade failure imminent. Evacuation status. 40% of personnel have reached escape pods. The rest are still in transit." Another explosion, closer this time. The lights flickered, then stabilized. "We have to go," Zex Thorne decided. "There's nothing more we can do here." "But what about the human? We can't let them escape with the reality shear." Zex Thorne stared at the security feed one last time. The human was now walking back toward the main entrance, still moving at that same casual pace, the bag slung over one shoulder. Every Vraxian soldier they encountered either stood aside or actively helped them pass. "I don't think we have a choice," Zex Thorne said grimly. "Whatever that thing is, it isn't something we can stop." As they raced toward the nearest escape pod, alarms blaring all around them, Zex Thorne couldn't shake the image of the human's face from his mind. There had been something in their expression, not triumph, not determination, not even concentration. Just mild curiosity, as if the most secure military installation in the Vraxian Empire was nothing more than a mildly interesting museum exhibit. "War Admiral," Kylevex said as they strapped themselves into the escape pod. "What do we tell the High Council?" Zex Thorne stared out the viewport as the escape pod's engines ignited, propelling them away from the doomed fortress. In the distance, he could see other pods launching, bright streaks against the black sky. "We tell them the truth," he said grimly. One human walked into their fortress. No one walked out. The escape pod accelerated away from Fortress Dominion, just as the first major antimatter containment field collapsed. The explosion lit up the dark side of the moon like a newborn star, casting long shadows across the barren landscape. Somewhere in that inferno was the human, or whatever had taken human form. And Zex Thorne knew with absolute certainty that they hadn't seen the last of it. "The negotiation. Explain it again," Empress HFY demanded, her massive form looming over the holographic display. "And this time, make it sound less like the hallucinations of a spice-addled navigator." 3 solar days had passed since the destruction of Fortress Dominion. The High Council chamber was silent except for the soft humming of environmental systems, maintaining the methane-rich atmosphere that the Vraxian ruling class preferred. War Admiral Zex Thorne straightened his posture, fighting the urge to press his mandibles against his thorax in the Vraxian gesture of submission. "As I reported, Your Radiance, a single human infiltrated our facility, bypassed all security protocols, stole multiple classified weapons including the reality shear, and triggered an antimatter containment breach." He paused, knowing his next words would sound like madness. "The human displayed abilities that defy explanation. Guards simply let them pass. Security systems recognized their biometrics as authorized personnel, and they were completely immune to our neurotoxins. The Empress's compound eyes narrowed, their faceted surfaces reflecting the holographic display of Fortress Dominion's remains, a massive crater where the facility had once stood, still glowing with residual radiation. "So you're telling me," she said, her voice dangerously soft, "that one human, just one, walked into our most secure military installation in the sector and destroyed it, along with 10,000 of our finest warriors." "Not destroyed it exactly," Sub-Commander Keidelvex interjected, immediately regretting her boldness when the Empress's glare shifted to her. "That is, the human didn't seem interested in destruction. The antimatter containment breach appeared almost incidental. Their primary objective was the reality shear, which they obtained," the Empress snapped. "The culmination of a century of research, now in human hands." Zex Thorn hesitated, then spoke carefully. "With respect, Your Radiance, I don't believe this was a standard Earth Concordat operation. The human didn't behave like any operative I've encountered. They seemed different." "Different how?" asked High General Vexcare, his scared carapace evidence of countless battles against human forces. "It's difficult to explain," Zex Thorn admitted. "They moved with absolute confidence, as if the outcome was never in doubt. And their expression, there was no fear, no tension, just mild curiosity, like they were touring a historical site rather than infiltrating a military fortress." "So your defense is that this wasn't a normal human, but some kind of superhuman?" the Empress asked skeptically. "I'm not offering a defense, Your Radiance. I'm trying to provide an accurate assessment of the threat." The council chamber doors slid open, interrupting their conversation. A junior communications officer rushed in, her exoskeleton flushed with the blue hue of extreme agitation. "Your Radiance," she exclaimed, "urgent communication from the human Earth Concordat." The Empress's mandibles clicked in irritation. "Display it." The holographic display shifted, showing the imposing figure of a human male in what appeared to be a military uniform, though not one Zex Thorn recognized from their encounters with Earth forces. "Greetings, Empress Hylara of the Vraxian Empire," the human began, speaking perfect High Vraxian, the complex clicking language that humans shouldn't even be able to pronounce with their soft mouths. "I am Ambassador Thomas Reeves of the Earth Concordat. We wish to discuss the recent incident at your military installation." The Empress's dorsal spines flared in anger. "You dare contact us after your unprovoked act of aggression. You will return the reality shear immediately, or face the consequences." The human, Ambassador Reeves, tilted his head slightly. "I believe there's been a misunderstanding. The individual who visited your facility was not acting under our authorization. We had no knowledge of this operation until after it occurred." "You expect us to believe that?" High General Vexcare snarled. "A rogue human somehow penetrated our most secure facility." "Not rogue," the ambassador corrected. "Independent. And I believe you've already witnessed that this particular human is unusual." War Admiral Zex Thorn felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. The way the ambassador said unusual matched exactly what he had observed. "We are as concerned about this development as you are," Reeves continued. "That's why I request a face-to-face meeting to discuss this situation, a neutral location of your choosing, with whatever security measures you deem necessary." The Empress's compound eyes narrowed. "This is preposterous. You humans have the reality shear. You've disabled our most advanced weapons research facility, and now you expect us to meet with you." "Your Radiance," the ambassador said, his voice remaining calm, "I understand your suspicion, but I assure you, we do not have the reality shear, and we have as much interest in finding this individual as you do." "Lies," the High General spat. "Your kind has always." A new voice interrupted, coming from somewhere behind them in the council chamber. "He's telling the truth, actually." Every Vraxian in the room whirled around, weapons materializing in their clawed hands. Standing calmly in the center of the High Council chamber, the most secure room on the Vraxian homeworld, was a human. Not the ambassador on the screen, but another one. Average height, nondescript features, wearing the same type of civilian attire as the intruder at Fortress Dominion. And in their hand was the reality shear. "How did you get in here?" the Empress demanded, her voice a mixture of rage and fear. "The same way I got into your fortress," the human replied simply. "I walked in." War Admiral Zex Thorn recognized them immediately. "It's them. The one from Fortress Dominion." The human gave him a slight nod. "War Admiral Zex Thorn. Sub-Commander Kyle Vex. Good to see you both made it out safely." A dozen elite guards surrounded the human, pulse weapons charged and aimed. The human seemed completely unconcerned. "I believe," they said, looking directly at the Empress, "that we need to talk." "Seize them," the Empress commanded. The guards moved forward, and then stopped, their weapons lowering. "That won't work," the human said conversationally. "Just like it didn't work at your fortress." The ambassador on the screen cleared his throat. "Your Radiance, perhaps we should listen to what they have to say." "Who are you?" the Empress demanded of the human intruder. "My name is Alex Morgan," the human replied. "I'm a representative of the Human Evolutionary Collective. We're not part of the Earth Concordat." Another human faction. High General Vexkar asked suspiciously. "In a manner of speaking," Morgan said, turning the reality shear over in their hands casually, as if it were a simple toy and not the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy. "We've been watching this war between your species for some time. We've decided it needs to end." "You've decided," the Empress repeated incredulously. "You think you can dictate terms to the Vraxian Empire?" Morgan smiled slightly. "I walked into your most secure fortress. I'm standing in your most secure chamber. I'm holding your most dangerous weapon. What do you think?" The council chamber fell silent. "What do you want?" the Empress finally asked, her voice tight with suppressed rage. Morgan placed the reality shear on the central table, where it sat gleaming under the harsh lights. "I want to show you something." Before anyone could react, Morgan pressed a small device on their wrist. The air in the center of the chamber shimmered, and a holographic display appeared. But unlike any hologram the Vraxians had ever seen, it had substance, depth, perfect resolution. It showed a star system the Vraxians didn't recognize. "This is the Proxima Centauri system," Morgan explained. "It's 4.2 light-years from Earth. A few months ago, something entered this system." The display zoomed in on what appeared to be a massive ship, if something the size of a small moon could be called a ship. "We call them the Harvesters," Morgan continued. "They appear every few thousand years, moving from system to system. They consume all advanced life forms they encounter. They convert biomass into energy and use it to power their journey to the next system." The hologram changed, showing the massive ship in action, breaking apart a planet, drawing streams of material into its central core. "This is what happened to the Proxima colony 3 months ago," Morgan said. 3 million humans. Gone. The Empress's mandibles clicked slowly. "Why show us this? Why should we believe you?" In response, Morgan tapped the device again. The hologram changed to show a different system, one the Vraxians recognized immediately. "This is a live feed from the edge of the Vraxian home system," Morgan said quietly. "The Harvester will arrive in approximately 6 months." The council chamber erupted in voices, all speaking at once. The Empress raised her upper limbs, silencing them. "If what you say is true," she said slowly, "why come to us? Why not let these Harvesters eliminate your enemy?" "Because we can't stop them alone," Morgan replied simply. "No single species can. The Harvesters have been doing this for millions of years. They've eliminated countless civilizations. The only way to defeat them is together. That's why you took the reality shear," Zex Thorn realized. Morgan nodded. "It's one of the few weapons we found that could potentially damage a Harvester, but it needs to be modified, adapted. And we need more than just weapons. We need your strategists, your scientists, your warriors. Ambassador Reeves spoke up from the screen. The Earth Concordat is prepared to offer an immediate cessation of hostilities and a joint defense pact against this threat. Convenient, the High General growled. Just as we were gaining the upper hand in the war. Morgan smiled thinly. Were you? Really? They tapped their wrist device again. The hologram changed to show Earth, but not as the Vraxians knew it. The planet was surrounded by a massive defense grid, with thousands of ships unlike any the Vraxians had encountered in battle. The Earth Concordat has been holding back, Morgan explained, fighting a defensive war while they built up their real forces. They could have launched a full-scale invasion of Vraxian space 2 years ago, but they chose not to. Why? The Empress demanded. Because they knew about the harvesters, Morgan said. They've been preparing to fight them, not you. This war has been an unfortunate distraction. The Empress stared at the hologram for a long moment, her compound eyes reflecting the image of Earth's hidden armada. And you? She finally asked, turning to Morgan. What is your role in all this? You're not part of the Earth Concordat, you said. The Human Evolutionary Collective, Morgan repeated. We're what humans become, eventually, when they're ready. I don't understand, Kylevex said. Morgan looked at her. Evolution doesn't just happen to physical bodies, Sub-Commander. It happens to consciousness too. The collective is what comes after nation-states, after planetary unification, after interstellar expansion. We're what humans become when they transcend their biological limitations. You're saying you're evolved humans? Zex Thorne asked, struggling to comprehend. In a manner of speaking, Morgan replied, though that's a vast simplification. The important thing is that we have knowledge and abilities that can help both our species survive what's coming. Morgan turned back to the Empress. We need an answer, Your Radiance. Will the Vraxian Empire join us against the Harvesters? Or will you continue this pointless war until both our species are consumed? The Empress's mandibles clicked rapidly as she considered. You come into our most secure fortress, steal our most powerful weapon, infiltrate our council chamber, and then expect us to trust you. I did those things to prove that I could, Morgan said calmly. To demonstrate that if we wanted to destroy you, we could have done so already. Instead, I'm here offering an alliance. Ambassador Reeves spoke again from the screen. Your Radiance, the Earth Concordat is prepared to send a delegation immediately to begin discussions on a joint defense strategy. The Empress stared at Morgan for a long moment. How do I know this harvester threat is real? How do I know this isn't some elaborate human deception? Morgan smiled slightly. Because you've seen what one of us can do. Imagine what all of us could do if we wanted to conquer rather than cooperate. The council chamber fell silent again. Finally, the Empress spoke. Leave us, all of you. She looked at Morgan. Except you, human. You stay. As the council members and guards filed out, Zex Thorne caught one last glimpse of the strange human standing before the Empress, the reality shear still sitting on the table between them. One human had walked into their fortress. No one had walked out. Now that same human stood in the heart of their empire, offering salvation or destruction. And War Admiral Zex Thorne couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of something much larger than their war with humanity, something that would change both species forever.